The storm rolled in without warning. Dark clouds gathered above the small suburban neighborhood, and the streetlights flickered like weak candles fighting against the wind. Rachel pulled her thin jacket tighter as she walked home from her late shift at Maggie's diner. Her sneakers slapped against the wet pavement, and in her arms she carried a paper bag of leftover soup she had promised to give her downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Aguilar. It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Just another quiet walk on the same street she had lived on for 2 years. But tonight the air felt heavy, almost alive. The trees shivered even when the wind calmed, and the hairs on Rachel's arms stood straight as if the night itself was watching her. Her breath fogged in the cold air as headlights suddenly cut across the road. A car skidded on the slick pavement, tires screeching as the driver lost control. Rachel froze. The roar of the engine and the blinding lights swallowed everything. The paper bag slipped from her arms and burst open on the ground. For one terrible moment she couldn't move. Then something slammed into her from the side. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her against a solid chest. She hit the ground hard, but not alone. The car swerved past, missing her by inches, and crashed into a lamppost. Metal groaned. Glass shattered. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked up, dazed, and met a pair of eyes glowing faintly amber in the stormlight. The man holding her was tall, his breath steady even though hers came in gasps. "You're safe," he said, his voice low, calm, and sure. Marcus. The name slid into her mind like it belonged there. She wanted to ask who he was, but the question never left her lips. From the woods across the street came a sound that froze her blood. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't the wind. It was a howl, long, sharp, and full of hunger. Rachel's pulse raced. Every dog in the neighborhood went silent. The shadows between the trees moved, and 2 large shapes stepped out, too big to be strays. Their eyes glowed red against the dark. What are those?" Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. Marcus shifted, placing himself between her and the creatures. His shoulders squared, and even without raising his voice, authority rolled off him like heat. "Get inside," he told her. "Lock your windows. Don't look back." Rachel couldn't take her eyes off him. He stood so calm, so unshaken, as if he had done this before. The wind whipped through the street, but he didn't flinch. He whispered something in a language she didn't know. The creatures flinched. Their snarls died in their throats, and with one last glare at Rachel, they slipped back into the forest. The street went still again, but the silence felt sharp, unnatural. Rachel's chest burned with fear, but something else too, something strange. The sound of the howl had awakened something deep inside her, something that wasn't supposed to exist. Marcus turned to her, eyes still faintly glowing. For a moment his calm slipped, and she thought she saw recognition, like he had been waiting for her. She swallowed hard. What was that? He didn't answer the way she hoped. He only said the same words again, firmer this time, "Stay inside tonight." And then, without another glance, he walked into the storm. No umbrella. No coat. Just a man who looked like he belonged to the night. Rachel stood on the wet pavement, shivering, her heart racing so loud she thought the neighbors would hear it. She clutched her arms, staring at the place where the creatures had disappeared. Her neighbor wasn't normal. She knew it with a certainty that made her hands shake. And yet, something inside her had responded to him. She turned back toward her apartment, every nerve on fire, and whispered the words she was afraid to believe. "He saved me." But from the trees, unseen by her, a woman with pale hair watched, lips curling into a smile. "So the king chose a human," she whispered, and vanished into the storm. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed, so you'll always know when I drop a new story. Chapter 1. The morning after the storm, Rachel tried to shake off the memory of headlights bearing down on her. She told herself it was just exhaustion, that she'd imagined the shadows with glowing eyes in the street. Still, her hands trembled as she tied her apron at the diner where she worked part-time. The bell above the door jingled and the scent of strong coffee filled the air. The place was small with cracked leather booths and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. Locals gathered there every morning, swapping stories over eggs and hash browns. Rachel usually blended into the background. That was how she liked it, safe, unseen. "Morning, Rachel," said Mrs. Cooper, a regular with a sharp tongue and a sharper eye. "You hear about the new man who moved into the Grant house?" Rachel shook her head, pouring coffee into the woman's mug. "No, I didn't." Tall, broad shoulders. Strange eyes, Mrs. Cooper said, lowering her voice. "Moved in last week without much fuss. Some say he's running from something." Rachel offered a polite smile. Gossip was the town's lifeblood, but she'd learned not to drink from it. By noon the diner buzzed louder than usual. The door opened and the morning chatter dropped into a hush. Rachel turned and froze. It was him. The man from last night. He wasn't in storm-torn streets now, but standing in daylight, dressed in a dark jacket that did nothing to soften the commanding way he filled the doorway. His amber eyes swept the room, and when they landed on her, it felt like he saw far more than he should. Rachel's pulse raced. He crossed the diner slowly, every step deliberate. He sat at the counter directly across from her station. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. He inclined his head. "Black." His voice was low, smooth, but carried a weight that made her shiver. She poured the coffee, avoiding his gaze. "I don't think we've met. I'm Rachel." "Marcus," he said simply, his eyes never leaving hers. "Your neighbor." Her breath caught. Neighbor. The word felt heavier than it should, like it carried secrets. Mrs. Cooper leaned toward another booth, whispering loudly enough for half the diner to hear. "That's him. The new man." Rachel flushed under the weight of curious stares. She set the cup down before him. "Welcome to town," she managed. Marcus gave the faintest smile, but his eyes glowed almost gold in the light. "Thank you. I'll be seeing you around." When he left, the diner buzzed again with speculation. Rachel tried to focus on clearing tables, but her thoughts swirled. The way he looked at her, it was as though he knew her, or worse, expected something of her. That evening, Rachel walked home through quiet streets. The Grant house loomed ahead, once abandoned, now alive with new curtains and lights. As she passed, movement at the window caught her eye. Marcus stood there, half in shadow, watching. Rachel's steps faltered, a chill running down her spine. For a moment she thought she saw something ripple in his stance, too fluid, too powerful to belong to any ordinary man. She blinked and the image was gone. She hurried into her small apartment, bolting the door behind her. But even as she sat in the silence, she couldn't stop hearing his voice. "Marcus, your neighbor." And somewhere deep inside, a part of her she'd never known stirred awake. Chapter 2. Rachel carried the cookie tin across the street, her pulse too loud in her ears. She told herself it was nothing, just being polite. Still, stepping up to Marcus's door felt heavier than it should. He opened it almost instantly, like he'd known she was there. He wore a simple sweater, sleeves pushed back, but his presence filled the doorway. "I made these," Rachel said, holding out the tin. "To say thanks." His gaze lingered on her face before he took the tin carefully. "You didn't need to." "I wanted to," she said. "Come in." His words weren't a request. Inside, the house was bare but sharp. Dark wood, stone, no photos, no clutter. It didn't look lived in, more like a waiting room built for someone who never arrived. "You live alone?" she asked. "Yes." "For work?" "For quiet," he said simply. He tried to laugh. "You'll find plenty of that here." His amber eyes met hers. "Quiet isn't always safe." Rachel stilled. "Last night, those animals, they weren't strays," he said quickly, cutting her off. "Lock your windows." "I already do," she replied. "Good." The silence stretched between them until she stepped back toward the door. "I should get going. Dinner rush at the diner." He gave the faintest smile. Enjoy the quiet while you can. When she left, dusk was settling over the neighborhood. Rachel walked quickly toward her apartment. That was when she noticed the black SUV crawling down the block. Windows tinted. Too smooth for this old street. The passenger window slid down just enough for her to see a lean man with a scar at his temple. His stare locked on hers. He smiled sharp and cold. Rachel's chest tightened. She looked away and hurried her steps. The SUV rolled past, turning at the corner. Across the street, beneath a bare tree, a pale-haired woman stood watching. She was striking, elegant, dressed in white that didn't belong in a quiet suburb. Their eyes met for a heartbeat before the woman tilted her head, amused, and slipped into the shadows. Rachel's key shook in the lock when she reached her apartment. Inside, she leaned against the door, whispering, "It's fine. Just neighbors. Just nothing." But when she turned to the table, an envelope lay on the floor, pushed under the door. No name. No address. Her hands hesitated, then tore it open. A photograph slid out. Marcus, dressed in a dark suit, standing on stone steps, men behind him like guards. A strange sigil marked the corner. 3 words were cut and pasted across the bottom. "Do not trust." Rachel's breath hitched. She flipped the photo. Nothing on the back. No sender. Only those words. Her mind raced. Someone wanted her to fear Marcus. But why? She tucked the envelope in a drawer, but her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Across the street, a single light came on in Marcus's house. She stood at her window, staring at it far too long, her chest tight with 2 truths that did not agree. Marcus had saved her life. And someone wanted her to believe he was the danger. Chapter 3. Rachel threw herself into work the next day, but her mind wasn't steady. The photo in the drawer burned at her memory, and every creak in her apartment last night had felt like a warning. The diner was already busy. Maggie flipped pancakes, Jenna balanced plates, and locals filled the booths. The hum of voices and clatter of forks usually calmed Rachel, but not today. "You're pale," Jenna said, brushing past. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine," Rachel replied quickly. She wasn't fine. Her chest still carried the echo of Marcus's voice and the SUV man's cold stare. She shoved the thought away and poured coffee for Mr. Collins. The bell jingled. Rachel glanced up, bracing for Marcus. Instead, a tall man in a pressed gray suit walked in. He looked out of place, like he belonged in a courthouse, not a diner. His pale eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on her, she froze. "Good morning," he said smoothly, stepping toward the counter. "Quite the commotion here yesterday, I hear." Rachel blinked. "You've got the wrong place." He smiled faintly. "I rarely have the wrong place." He slipped a small card across the counter. No phone number, only a black sigil stamped in the corner. "If you ever need guidance, Miss Rachel." Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" "Names travel," he said. His eyes flicked to the window toward Marcus's house. "Ask your neighbor. He'll understand." Maggie appeared at Rachel's side, snatching the card before she could touch it. "She doesn't need strangers handing her scraps," Maggie snapped. The man's smile didn't falter. "Strangers are only strangers until truth is shared." He tipped his head politely and walked out as smoothly as he'd come. A dark sedan waited at the curb. He slipped inside and was gone. "Who was that?" Jenna whispered. Maggie shoved the card into her apron pocket. "Nobody worth knowing." But Rachel knew better. The man's words had weight. By afternoon, the rush eased. Rachel stepped outside into the alley for air. Snowmelt dripped from the roof, tapping a steady rhythm. She rubbed her hands, remembering the valve she'd turned yesterday during the fire scare. Her palms had burned for hours after. "You handled yourself well," a voice said. She spun. Marcus stood near the dumpster, half in shadow, amber eyes steady. "You can't just appear like that," Rachel said. "Better me than someone else," he replied. His gaze dropped to her hands. They still hurt. She shoved them into her pockets. I'm fine. Rachel. His voice softened. Strength like that doesn't come from nowhere. You felt it, didn't you? The heat, the clarity. Her throat tightened. How would you know? Because I've felt it too, he said simply. The air between them pulsed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Be careful with the man you saw today. Elder Whitaker is not your friend. She stared. So you do know him? I know what he wants. Stay away from him. Rachel swallowed hard. And if I don't? His jaw tightened. Then you'll force me to protect you in ways you're not ready to see. Before she could answer, Maggie's voice called from inside, sharp as a bell. Rachel. Breaks over. Marcus's gaze lingered, heavy with unspoken things. Then he stepped back. Lock your windows, he said again and disappeared around the corner. Rachel leaned against the brick wall, her heart racing. She hated how her chest warmed at his words. She hated that she wanted to believe him, even as a stranger's warning still rang in her ears. Inside, the diner smelled of bacon and syrup, but Rachel felt the shadows pressing closer. If your heart is racing right now, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next stories. Chapter 4. Rachel reheated soup and tried not to look at the drawer where the photo waited. She lasted 5 minutes. The paper felt colder tonight. Marcus in a suit. Men behind him like guards. The odd sigil in the corner. It was proof of something, she just didn't know what. A sound outside made her lift the curtain. Snow glittered under the streetlights. Then a woman appeared, walking slowly down the block as if the sidewalk belonged to her. Pale hair, winter-white coat, gloves to match. Not a neighbor Rachel knew. The woman stopped in front of the modern house and tilted her head, listening. Her lips curved, pleased by what she heard in the quiet. Rachel let the curtain fall. Whoever she was, she had not come by chance. Morning brought thin sun and frozen air. At the diner, gossip ran faster than coffee. Did you see the lady in white? Mrs. Cooper whispered when Rachel poured her refill. Sophia. Says she's with some foundation. Fancy car. Fancy smell. I'll tell you what I smell. Trouble. Maybe she's here for the ski hills, Rachel said, aiming for harmless. Honey, women like that don't ski. They hunt. Rachel forced a smile and moved on. She didn't want to feed a rumor, she wanted facts. Still the word lingered. Hunt. Her shift ended early. On her walk home, she slowed at the corner when she saw the white coat again. The woman stood beneath a bare maple, studying Rachel's building as if reading a menu. Up close she was even more striking, cool beauty and careful power. Hello, the woman said as if they were old friends. You must be Rachel. I am, Rachel answered, instinct telling her not to give more. I'm Sophia, the woman said. I help organize things. Community, charity, all that. She smiled. You live across from Marcus. Rachel kept her face neutral. And you are? An old friend, Sophia said smoothly. I stopped by to welcome him. He wasn't home. Rachel lifted a shoulder. He keeps to himself. Does he? Sophia stepped closer, lowering her voice. I wonder if he keeps himself from you. Rachel's throat went dry. Excuse me. Sophia's smile brightened, all sugar. Oh, don't mind me. I'm curious by nature. Curiosity keeps one alive. She produced a small white card with a silver crest, different from the black sigil on the elder's card, but cousin to it. If you need help navigating new neighbors, call me. I don't take calls from strangers, Rachel said, but the card was already in her palm, soft as a petal and just as unwanted. Wise, Sophia murmured. Wisdom is rare. She glanced toward the trees. Be careful at night. Some doors shouldn't open. She left without a sound, as if the snow carried her. Rachel stood very still. The card felt like frost. She tucked it deep in her coat pocket and crossed the street. Halfway up her steps, a voice stopped her. You shouldn't speak to her. Marcus stood beside his fence, sleeves pushed to his forearms, wood stacked at his boots. The sight should have been ordinary. It wasn't. His gaze flicked to the pocket that held the card as if he could smell the ink. She introduced herself, Rachel said. Said she was a friend. She isn't. His tone was quiet but iron ran under it. If she smiles, it's to hide the blade. Rachel's chin lifted. Then why is she here? To test the locks, he said. To see which doors open. Mine won't, Rachel said. It sounded braver than she felt. His eyes warmed. Good. She hesitated. You know her. I know what she wants, he said. And I won't let her take it. The words landed heavy. Rachel's pulse stuttered. What does she want? His jaw worked once. Leverage. He looked like he might say more, then stopped. Lock your windows. If anything feels wrong, call me. You never gave me your number, she said. He told her a string of digits. She repeated them, typed them into her phone, then pressed call. His pocket buzzed. He didn't look at it. He looked at her as if the ring itself meant something old. Now you have it, she said softly. Now you're not alone, he answered. Night drew its line. Rachel closed her curtains, checked her latch, and made tea she didn't drink. The card from Sophia lay on the table, pale against the wood. She almost threw it away, then tucked it under the photo instead. Proof with proof. Wind moved across the roofs. Somewhere a bottle rolled in an alley. He tried to read. He tried to sleep. Near midnight, a low howl slid under the door like smoke. Not a stray dog. Not a coyote. It rose, held, and fell with a human ache she felt in her ribs. Another answered farther off. Rachel sat up. Across the street, a light snapped on in the modern house. A shadow crossed the window. Then the light went out. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the final digit and knew. Marcus, do not open your door. He typed back why. The dots appeared, then stopped. A minute. Two. Another buzz. Marcus, tracks in the snow. 2 sets. One comes to your steps. Her skin went cold. Are you outside? Marcus, yes. She was at the window before she knew she had moved. She spotted him at the edge of her yard, a dark shape against brighter snow, still as a post. He looked left, then right, then up at her window, and the tightness in her chest eased. Rachel, I'm locked. He nodded once and vanished into the dark between houses, moving faster than the cold should allow. She watched the line of trees until the branches stopped shaking. Another message came. Marcus, sleep if you can. Rachel set the phone down. Sleep felt impossible. Yet she lay back anyway, one palm on her chest, counting breaths, listening for the sound of his steps returning to the street. When the howl rose again, closer now, it should have scared her. Instead, heat unfurled low in her spine, and a feeling she could not name tugged her toward the window, toward the trees, toward him, as if some hidden compass inside her had finally found north. Chapter 5. Morning came thin and pale. Rachel stood at her window, breath fogging the glass, and looked down at the steps. The snow was roughed up by boots and tire slush, but 2 clear marks sat apart from all the rest. Prints too large for any dog, too heavy for a person. They ended at her bottom step, then vanished as if the visitor had simply stopped being. She dressed on a jittering pulse, made toast she didn't eat, and walked to the diner with her hat down and her thoughts louder than traffic. The bell over the door gave its bright ring. Heat, coffee, voices, the smell of butter. Normal tried its best. Morning, honey. Maggie eyed her face. You look like you wrestled a dream and lost. Just didn't sleep, Rachel said. Jenna slid by with a stack of plates. Town's buzzing. 2 fancy cars outside Cooper's last night. And somebody said the woman in white is from some foundation in the city. Let folks buzz, Maggie muttered. They'll tire themselves out. Rachel poured coffee, took orders, and pretended the world fit. But whispers snagged her like brambles. Lives alone. Those eyes. The new man. She didn't look at the door. She felt him anyway the moment the room shifted. The voices softened without knowing why. Rachel kept her eyes on the register and still knew where he sat. Third stool from the end back to the wall, watching the window that faced the street. Coffee? She asked because she had to say something. Please, Marcus said. The word was gentle but it carried. He poured. He did not touch her hand, yet warmth ran up her arm like a current. Rough night? He asked. She kept her eyes on the cup. I heard howls. They were far enough, he said. But not as far as I'd like. He turned the mug slowly. If the woman in white speaks to you again, decline. Some games look kind. They never are. What is she? Rachel asked. What she wants, he said. Everything else is a costume. Before Rachel could answer, a delivery driver shoved through the door, the bell jangling wild. He cut the corner too fast and slammed into her tray. Plates lifted. A rain of cups tipped. She moved without thinking. One hand shot out and caught the tray edge. Her other hand plucked a glass from the air by the rim. Porcelain clinked, settled, then stilled. A fork chimed once on the floor and went quiet. The driver stared. How did you? Careful next time, Maggie snapped, covering the silence. You break it, you buy it. Rachel set the tray down, her heartbeat a drum in her throat. In the window's chrome edge she saw a quick flash, her eyes warmer, almost gold. She blinked and they were brown again. She dared a glance at Marcus. He was already watching her, expression unreadable, focus bright. Later, he said under his breath, so softly only she heard. We'll talk later. He left cash on the counter and rose with a smooth, contained ease that made three people scoot aside without knowing they had moved. The bell gave one small ring as he stepped into the light. The day crawled. Rachel heard every scrape, every pore, every laugh like it lived inside her ear. By closing, her skin felt too tight for her body. She told Maggie she needed air and left by the back door, planning to cut behind the hardware store and shave 5 minutes off her walk. The shortcut ran along the first strip of trees, where the town forgot to be houses and the dark began. Snow lay thin and crusted. The sky hung low. Rachel could smell sap and cold iron, and under that something muscular, wild male near. Her breath misted. She told herself not to be dramatic. She told herself to walk. A shape slid between trunks 20 yards in. A man's height, but wrong in the shoulders, wrong in the way it held still. Her feet stopped. The shape did not flinch. A faint scrape of ice against bark reached her from that direction and from another, farther back. Not alone. Rachel, a voice said behind her, quiet and close. She didn't startle. Somehow she knew it was him. Marcus stepped to her side, not touching, making a wall with his body. His gaze cut the trees and held. Don't look at them, he said. Look at me. Someone's there, she whispered. 2, he said. Maybe 3. They're testing. Testing what? Your fear, he said simply. And my patience. The shape shifted slow. A breath of sound came from its chest, not quite a growl, more like a promise. Marcus's stance changed by degrees. He didn't get bigger, but the space he took did. Walk, he murmured. Not fast. Not weak. Walk. They moved. Rachel felt the eyes in the trees like cold fingers. She kept hers on the cracked asphalt ahead. What are they? She asked. Rogues, he said. They smell a boundary and wonder what happens if they cross it. And me. Her voice was barely sound. What do they smell on me? He was quiet, a heartbeat. Something new, he said. Something that scares them and makes them hungry both. They reached the back fence of the hardware store. The trees thinned. The shapes stayed where the town turned to woods, hovering like thoughts you don't want to think. Inside, Marcus said. Lock the door. Call me if you hear anything. She looked back once. The dark gave nothing back. In her apartment, Rachel set every chain and latch she had. Her hands trembled. She pressed her palms flat on the counter and waited for her breath to even out. At last she took the photo from the drawer and set it beside Sophia's pale card. Side by side, they felt like two pieces of a story that didn't want to be told. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, they're gone. For now. Rachel, what do they want? Pause. Marcus, leverage. Chaos. And you if they can't have the first two. She stared at the words until they blurred. Rachel, what is happening to me? A longer pause. Marcus, the truth. Slowly. Sleep came late and strange. When it did, it brought heat under her skin, the sound of snow compressing under paws, and the sense of a vast dark world unfolding just past the line of trees. She dreamed of running without falling, of amber light, of a voice near her ear saying, "You're not broken. You're awakening." Rachel woke with tears on her cheeks and her chest aching with a want she could not name. The room was quiet. The town breathed. Across the street, a single light glowed in the modern house like a watchful eye. She whispered into her pillow, "I'm scared." And for the first time the fear did not stand alone. It had a twin now. Something fierce, something bright, something that felt like it had been waiting its whole life to be called by its true name. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed, so you'll always know when I drop a new story. Chapter 6. Rachel carried her laundry basket up the narrow steps to Mrs. Aguilar's door. She had promised to help with sheets, but mostly she needed to be near someone who felt steady. Mrs. Aguilar's apartment smelled of lavender and warm bread, safe things. "Sit," the old woman said, waving her toward the chair. "You look hollowed out." Rachel folded her arms around herself. "Do I seem strange to you?" Mrs. Aguilar gave her a long look. "Strange? Well, different, yes. Storms change people. Sometimes you hear sounds sharper, or you feel a pull you can't name." Rachel's throat tightened. "That's exactly it. My body feels wrong. Stronger, faster. I caught a tray yesterday like it weighed nothing. And when I looked in the glass, my eyes weren't brown. They were gold," Mrs. Aguilar finished softly. Rachel blinked. "You saw." The older woman reached out, squeezed her hand. "I've lived long enough to know there are more shapes in this world than we admit. Don't be afraid of your reflection, Nina. Be afraid of those who would use it against you." Rachel thought of the envelope, the elder's card, Sophia's smile. Her chest tightened. "What if I'm dangerous?" "Then learn what kind of danger," Mrs. Aguilar said. "Don't let others tell you." Later that afternoon, Rachel walked back to her own building. The cold bit sharper today. At the corner, Sophia leaned against a pale car, coat pristine, lips red like she had painted them with fire. "Rachel," she called lightly as if greeting an old friend. "A word." Rachel's spine stiffened. "I'm busy. It will only take a moment." Sophia's eyes sparkled, sharp beneath the sweetness. "Do you even know who lives across from you?" Rachel forced her voice calm. "A neighbor." Sophia's laugh was soft. "He is no neighbor. He is a king hiding among sheep. Do you know what happens when kings fall? Everyone near them bleeds." Rachel's chest pulled tight. "You don't know him." "I know him better than you ever will," Sophia said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "And when he claims you, the council will never allow it. Do you want your little town burned for his mistake?" Rachel's breath stuttered. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to survive," Sophia whispered. "And Marcus will not keep you safe." She tucked a second card into Rachel's coat pocket. "Call me when you tire of secrets." Before Rachel could answer, Marcus appeared at the end of the block. His stride was calm, but his eyes burned. Sophia smiled at him, almost mocking, then slid into her car and drove away without a sound. Marcus stopped in front of Rachel, gaze hard. "What did she say to you?" Rachel shook her head. "She called you a king. She said you'll ruin me." He exhaled sharply, anger flickering before he pressed it down. She wants you afraid. Don't give her what she wants. Then give me something real, Rachel snapped, her voice shaking. What am I? Why do I feel like my skin doesn't fit anymore? His eyes softened, pain in them now. Because you're not just human, Rachel. You never were. The world tilted. Her knees weakened, but she didn't fall. That's not possible. It is, Marcus said. Your blood carries the wolf. Dormant, hidden. Until now. No, she backed away, shaking her head. I can't. Last night in the woods, he said firmly. Your senses shifted. Your strength at the diner. Your reflexes. Your awakening. That's why they're circling. Rogues, she whispered. He nodded. They smell new power. They'll test it, exploit it unless you learn to control it. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself, every nerve raw. I don't want this. His gaze locked on hers, fierce and gentle all at once. Neither did I. But running from it won't change what's in your blood. Tears blurred her eyes. Then what do I do? Marcus's hand twitched as if he wanted to reach for her but didn't. You let me teach you. You let me protect you. Because if you don't, Sophia and the rogues will tear this life apart. Rachel staggered back to her apartment when he left, her heart in chaos. She paced the small kitchen, hands trembling, every shadow too sharp. She splashed water on her face. For a split second, the reflection in the glass wasn't hers. Eyes glowing faint gold, jaw set, wildness humming under her skin. She stumbled back, clutching the counter, whispering, "No, no, no." But deep in her chest, something answered. A pulse that wasn't fear. A hunger older than she could understand. Chapter 7. Marcus came at dusk with a backpack slung over his shoulder. His eyes were sharp, his voice low. Training starts now. Rachel grabbed her coat and followed him to the trail behind the neighborhood. The houses faded, replaced by dark pines that whispered in the cold. Snow crunched under her boots. First rule, Marcus said. Breathe. In for 4, hold out for 6. Again. She tried, shaky at first, but her pulse steadied. Second rule, ground yourself. He tapped her boots. Feel the earth, not just the snow. Third, she asked. Don't fear your senses. They're not your enemy. He drew a circle in the snow. Second, close your eyes. Tell me what you hear. At first just her own ragged breath. Then faint sounds sharpened. Wind on branches, a car far away, even the steady rhythm of a heartbeat near her left side. Your heart, she whispered. Mine, Marcus corrected softly. Her cheeks flushed. Now scent. She inhaled. Pine resin, cold iron, smoke, and beneath it, him. Cedar and something wilder. Her body reacted before her mind could argue. Good, he said, though his gaze lingered on her. They repeated the drills until her panic thinned into focus. Then Marcus froze, head snapping toward the tree line. Stop. Rachel stiffened. A man leaned casually against a trunk, too still for comfort. His coat hung open despite the cold. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Evening, the stranger called. Cozy little town you've got. Marcus moved half a step in front of her. You're off your land. Boundaries are soft in winter, the man said lazily. His eyes slid to Rachel. Hello, little spark. Her skin crawled. Who are you? Call me an admirer. His grin sharpened. The king hides in suburbia and his prize walks by his side? Bold. Or stupid? Rachel blinked. King. The man's laugh was cruel. Didn't tell you, did he? Some secrets don't stay buried. He tipped 2 fingers in mock salute. We'll talk again. He vanished into the trees as if swallowed by them. Rachel whispered, Who was that? Rogue Alpha, Marcus said tightly. The word claim echoed in her head, the one the man had taunted. What did he mean by claim? Marcus's jaw worked. Not here. They walked back in silence. At her steps, Marcus finally said, "A bite seals a mate bond. Permanent. But I won't take what isn't freely given. Not while you're still learning." Rachel's chest tightened. Before she could reply, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A photo of her walking earlier taken from above. Caption, "Careful little spark. The council watches. W." Her stomach dropped. Whitaker. Marcus read over her shoulder, eyes darkening. He's baiting us. And he has allies. At his house, Marcus led her into a hidden study. Maps covered the walls, marked with routes and strange sigils. A glowing crest matched the envelope she'd once found. Rachel stared. "You said you were just a neighbor." "I said I was here," he replied. "Both are true. But Whitaker wants chaos. Sophia wants a crown. And the council wants you erased." Before she could answer, a thud rattled the back door. Marcus moved silently, flung it open. Nothing but snow. On the mat lay a small bundle wrapped in wet paper. Inside, a single silver bullet gleamed. Around it, clipped words spelled, "Kings fall. Humans bleed." Rachel's voice trembled. "What does it mean?" Marcus's eyes burned with resolve. "It means war is closer than I thought. And we stop hiding now." Chapter 8. Rachel woke in the guest room, gray light on the trees outside. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the quiet of Marcus's house settled around her, steady and strange. She sat up, palms on her ribs, and counted breaths like he'd taught her. The tightness eased, not gone but held. Marcus waited in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, coffee steaming. "Sleep?" he asked. "Enough to remember my name," she said. "Good. We won't have calm for long." By mid-morning the doorbell rang. Maggie bustled in with a casserole, Noah with tools, Mrs. Aguilar with sage. "Don't argue," Maggie said. "You need feeding." Noah muttered about fixing Rachel's locks. Mrs. Aguilar pressed herbs into Rachel's palm. Gratitude stung her eyes. Then came a harder knock. Elder Whitaker stood on the porch with two silent men. "Routine safety check," he said smoothly, eyes sliding to Rachel. "You look pale. Has the excitement unsettled you?" Marcus blocked the doorway. "What do you want?" Whitaker laid a folded flyer on the table. "A public forum tonight. School gym. We will discuss threats circling our neighborhood, and who invites them." His smile thinned before he left. Later at the diner the air felt off. Sophia sat in a white coat buying pie for strangers. She beckoned Rachel as she passed. "You look unwell," she said softly. "Change is hard on the body." Rachel stiffened. "Stop circling me." "I'm circling the fire," Sophia murmured. Before Rachel could answer, a knife screeched in the kitchen. Pain exploded behind her eyes. For a flash, she heard every heartbeat in the room. Heat climbed her spine, wild and wrong. "Rachel." Maggie's voice blurred. Marcus's hand closed on her wrist, grounding her. "Breathe," he whispered. She obeyed. The wave broke, leaving her trembling. Sophia's eyes gleamed with cruel interest. By evening, storm clouds pressed low. At the school gym, the bleachers filled with neighbors, anxious and curious. Whitaker stood at the front with his microphone. Sophia glided to the front row. "Friends," Whitaker said smoothly, "we gather to discuss safety. Strangers. Kings who dress as men." Murmurs rippled. Marcus stepped forward, voice steady. "I'm here. Ask what you want." Whitaker's smile cooled. "Who invited rogues to our border?" Marcus's gaze swept the room. "The rogues hunt for weakness. Fear opens more doors than I ever could." Sophia rose, graceful as a blade. "And what of tradition? Should a crown rest on someone ordinary?" Her eyes slid to Rachel. Heat burned Rachel's cheeks, but she stood tall. "I'm not a crown. I work at the diner. I pay my rent. I help my neighbors. If danger came because of me, I'd face it. But don't pretend your rules ever kept anyone safe. They kept you powerful." The room stirred, shock, approval, whispers. Whitaker's smile cracked. Bravery bends under weight. Perhaps a demonstration will help. The lights flickered. A door creaked. Cold poured into the gym, sharp with pine and silver. Marcus stepped in front of Rachel, every line of his body coiled. "Stay behind me," he said, and the world seemed to balance on the edge of breaking. Chapter 9. The gym was silent except for the hum of flickering lights. Rachel gripped the back of a folding chair, her heart hammering. At the far doors, shadows shifted. Men slipped inside, hard-eyed, carrying the smell of the forest and something sharper. Rogues. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents pulled children close. Whitaker spread his arms as though welcoming honored guests. "Proof," he said smoothly. "Proof of the danger our town faces when wolves are invited among us." Marcus's body tensed, the air around him charged. "You're playing with fire, Whitaker," he said, his voice low. One of the rogues stepped forward, taller than the rest, eyes burning with hunger. Rachel felt his stare latch onto her, like claws dragging down her skin. "So this is the girl," he sneered. "The little human who makes kings stumble." Murmurs rose. Rachel's stomach turned cold. "They know about me." Marcus stepped closer, shielding her. "You won't touch her." The rogue laughed. "Then show them what you are. Show them why you're unfit to guard even this scrap of a town." The words sliced the gym like knives. People shifted uneasily. Rachel saw doubt flash in their faces, fear blooming like frost. Sophia's voice carried sweet and sharp. "He hides because the truth would ruin him. A king who sneaks around like a thief, chained to a diner girl. Tell me, Marcus, how long before your secret tears this place apart?" Rachel's knees wobbled, but she stood tall. "Enough," she said louder than she felt. "You talk about safety, but you brought wolves to our door. You claim tradition, but you feed fear." Her voice shook but held. "If I'm the weakness, then why are you so afraid of me?" A stir rippled through the bleachers. Marcus's jaw clenched. His wolf pressed close, straining to break free. He could feel Rachel's courage, her trembling defiance. She had no claws, no fangs, yet she stood like a shield. Whitaker's smile turned sharp. "So loyal," he mocked. "But loyalty won't save you." He lifted a hand, signaling the rogues. The first one lunged. Chaos erupted. Screams tore through the gym. People shoved toward the exits. Marcus moved faster than sight, intercepting the rogue midair, slamming him into the bleachers. Wood cracked. Another rogue rushed him, teeth flashing, and Marcus's fist broke his jaw with a sickening snap. Rachel was shoved sideways in the panic, nearly knocked down. She fought to stay on her feet, scanning for Marcus. He was a blur of violence, holding back the full truth of what he was. Each shove was controlled, barely. The tallest rogue circled Rachel now, lips curled. "You smell different," he growled. "Not human." "Not yet." Rachel froze. His words dug into her chest like claws. "Not human." What did he mean? Marcus appeared between them, his amber eyes blazing. "Stay away from her." But the rogue only grinned. "Soon she'll know what she is. And when she does, you won't be able to hide her." Marcus's control cracked. With a roar, his eyes burned gold, his body trembling on the edge of change. The crowd gasped, seeing too much, understanding too little. Rachel grabbed his arm. "Marcus, don't. Not here." Her touch cut through the storm inside him. He forced his wolf down, panting, barely holding on. Around them, the gym was chaos. People fleeing, Sophia smiling in the shadows, Whitaker watching like a man who had lit the fuse and was waiting for the fire. The rogues retreated, but their leader pointed at Rachel as he backed toward the doors. "She's the key," he snarled. "Claim her or lose her. Either way you fall." Then they were gone, swallowed by the night. Silence crashed down, broken only by the sound of distant sobbing. Rachel's hands shook as she looked at Marcus. He was still half trembling, his wolf barely leashed. "They know about me," she whispered. I don't even know about me. Marcus cupped her face, his hands warm and rough. His voice was low, fierce. You're mine. That's what they know. And I'll burn the world before I let them take you. The words should have comforted her, but instead they deepened the ache in her chest. Because deep down Rachel feared he was right. Something inside her was waking, and soon there would be no hiding from it. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed, so you'll always know when I drop a new story. Chapter 10. Snow fell heavy as Marcus led Rachel from the gym. The town was shaken, whispers trailing behind them, but he knew the rogues would not wait long. At his house the wards hummed faintly, holding back the storm outside. They'll come tonight, Marcus said. Then we face them, Rachel answered, though her voice trembled. The knock came not long after, sharp against the glass. Marcus opened the door to the yard, the storm spilling in. At the tree-line the rogue Alpha waited, flanked by his pack. So this is your Luna, he sneered. His eyes lingered on Rachel. Not human. Not anymore. Marcus stepped in front of her. You won't touch her. The rogue's grin widened. Then show them what you are. He lunged. The yard erupted into chaos. Marcus struck with brutal precision, but there were too many. Snow churned red underfoot. Rachel was shoved back, heart pounding. Then the rogue leader came for her, silver flashing in his hand. Marcus turned too late. The knife cut his side. Blood bloomed. No. Rachel screamed. Heat tore through her body, fire racing her veins. The world sharpened, every sound, every heartbeat. Her eyes burned gold. She caught the rogue's wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the ground. Shock flickered in his eyes. Mine, she growled, the sound not entirely human. The other rogues faltered. Marcus staggered to her side, still bleeding but pride blazing in his gaze. She's chosen, he said. Leave or be buried here. The rogue spat blood, then signaled retreat. In moments they were gone, swallowed by the trees. Silence pressed down. Rachel shook, staring at her hands. What's happening to me? Marcus cupped her face, his touch steady despite the wound. You're waking to what you are. My Luna. Tears blurred her vision. I'm terrified. So am I, he admitted, voice raw. But it doesn't change what's true. He swayed. She caught him, pressed cloth to his side, and refused to let him fall. In that moment, fear gave way to certainty. She was no longer just the neighbor who wanted a quiet life. She was part of something older, fiercer, unbreakable. And the council, Sophia, the rogues, they would learn soon enough that the Alpha King was not alone. Epilogue. Spring sunlight spilled over the neighborhood weeks later, softening the scars of winter. The town still whispered about that night, about wolves in the storm, but Rachel noticed how the whispers had changed. Where there had been fear, there was now a wary kind of pride. Wolf Creek had stood, and it still stood. Rachel stood at her apartment window, the one that once overlooked an ordinary street. Across the way, Marcus's house glowed with new light. Neighbors passed him now with nods instead of suspicion. Some even left gifts on the porch. Bread, fresh-cut flowers, handwritten notes. The council had tried to summon him to account. Sophia had stirred venom where she could. But the town remembered who had fought for them when fear closed in, and their loyalty spoke louder than politics. Rachel tied her apron at the diner that afternoon, and Noah teased her as usual. Still serving coffee when you could be ruling kingdoms? She smiled. Maybe both. Marcus picked her up after closing. He didn't wear a crown, but the way people cleared a path for him said they knew. And when his eyes found Rachel, gold flashing warm in the light, she felt it. What he had been holding back, what he had been waiting to claim. That night, beneath the budding trees at the edge of the forest, he took her hand. You chose me when you didn't have to, he said. Now I ask if you'll choose again with everyone watching. Rachel's heart raced. I already have. He bent close, breath warm against her skin. His teeth grazed her shoulder where his mark had healed. This time she leaned into it, unafraid. The bond flared, no longer hidden, no longer denied. The air itself seemed to hum with it, the pack in the woods answering with distant howls. Rachel pressed her forehead to his. So this is what it feels like. Marcus's voice was rough. Home. She thought of the girl she had been. Just a neighbor, a diner waitress, someone who wanted to disappear into ordinary life. And she thought of the woman she had become. A Luna, a fighter, a queen chosen not by counsel or tradition but by her own will. Hand in hand they stepped back toward town. Whatever storms waited, they would face them together. The Alpha King and the neighbor who became his mate. No longer hiding, no longer afraid. Wolf Creek belonged to them now. And they belonged to each other. Thank you so much for listening to this story of love, destiny, and courage. If Rachel and Marcus's journey touched you, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves a good paranormal romance. Your support helps me bring more stories to life.